I want to talk today about the future, a word that probably hits each of you a little differently. And in some way, I have no idea what to say about the future. But it's a very impactful word, and it has enormous resonance for all of us. The phrase that comes to mind, and I think it's important, is a Rudy phrase, which is life turns on a dime. Of course, it may not be Rudy's phrase, but he used it a lot. Meaning, everything you think about the future could change like that. Anyone who's watched the news in the last week knows how potent things can be in the life of a person, how quickly they can change from one comfort zone to another discomfort zone. Sometimes with very little warning, sometimes with a little bit of warning, sometimes with a lifetime of warning. Certainly if you're living in Florida, and I have friends who live there, students as well, this last week has been life turning on a dime. Preparation was there in a sense. You had a few days to know that the future was going to be different, possibly, in many ways that you may not want it to be. But it came. And most of the people I know in Florida were lucky in that they missed, in some cases by 5 blocks, some of the worst transformational devastation imaginable. Some people have backup plans for the future. Some people have no backup plans. And other people have no way to plan. It's completely unknowable on some level. But as we live in the present tense and we contemplate the future, we try to imagine how we would react to it, but most of us don't have great imaginations. One of the stunning things to watch on the news was people who just could not fathom the possibility that things would be so drastically changed in their life in a short period of time. We're seeing that a lot in our culture right now, people just not facing what's ahead. And I know in some ways, there's only so much you can do, but probably the best thing you can do in terms of facing the future is be awake in the present. And even then, we don't see a lot of people necessarily who even do that. What mostly one sees is a lot of fogginess, lack of focus, a kind of avoidance of what is, a kind of deadening to the moment. I drove by a bar yesterday in Cairo, New York. In the mid-afternoon, Blanche and I had gone to get our shots, flu and booster. And we had talked once about traveling around the area and seeing new places. Well, this was a new place. But I have to say, around 1 o'clock, people were coming out of the bar with their shirts off, completely unaware, in a sense, of any of the magnitude of reality that they were living in. They were just facing that, give me another drink. And I saw a woman and her boyfriend, I think, smoking away, overweight, barely able to walk into the supermarket. And she looked unbelievably content. I have to say, she looked so Like, well, who cares? Who cares? What does it matter? And I truly think on a certain level, she may have the secret of life. Who gives a shit, really? Just, eat, drink, and be merry, and tomorrow, we'll worry about that tomorrow. And she seemed very committed to that. And I was in a little bit of awe by the fact that she didn't have to sit in meditation for 50 years. She didn't have to try to wake up to the nature of reality. It'll wake up when she wakes up. Of course, she may not like what she finds at that point, only because it will be perceived through a very blurry lens. And part of the journey we're all on is to awaken, if you will, to the moment, because it is the doorway into what is. Future is part of what is, past is part of what is, but the reality is it's all connected to this very second. And to have an open-eyed, open-hearted, open awareness, a gutted level awareness of existence is a wonderful preparation is the wrong word because it implies that we're living for something down the road, but it's a preparation to be now. It's a work in progress. It is an effort to arrive at this moment and knowing that's all you're ever going to really know, whatever that moment may be. And of course, it may become something that turns on a dime and will cause you to do an enormous amount of work. But if you've been doing the work, meaning showing up to the present tense, your ability to do that when life goes like that will be better than if you are totally unprepared for the alterations of time, space, memory, and all the Sturm und Drang of existence, slings and arrows, you might say. So here we are, sitting every day, those of us who sit every day, or being present all the time, which is an amazing way to live, and being prepared, if you will, for the best of your ability to respond to the what is, and to respond to it when it is lovely, to be deeply open and grateful to the truth of life, and also to be prepared for the unknowability of it. And we may not like the unknowability. I know Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane said, please take this cup from my lips. He did not want to face the future that awaited him. So clearly, as a human being, we may not like the presentment of what may be the future, but it is arriving, and we all have some sense of future, and that sense of future is, in a very profound way, the obliteration of everything we know, the absolute obliteration of everything. And that is something none of us want to look at, really, but it's already embedded in the moment. In this very moment, there is something that is present, and if you go very, very, very deep inside, something that feels beyond the moment, something that feels connected to something very large. Some people will call it the infinite and the eternal. Something that is witnessing life from a place that is not locked into the changeability of past, present, future. It is a vast knowing. And if you can begin to work that mindful awareness, that heartful awareness into that space, future takes on a little bit of a different sort of quality. It's not quite as terrifying, quite as something as obliterating as you might want to think it will be, or something you don't want to look at all. And, it takes a lot of internal processing to be able to go like this to the future. And I really think that's the goal of our entire meditative life. You go like this, and then not only to the future, but really to this moment. And see what the moment brings. Who knows? Life turns on a dime. Anything can happen. The phone can ring, someone you love will call. The phone will ring, someone you loved is no longer here. You don't know. You don't know. But if you stay open to the present tense, you will find an incredible directive of how to manipulate your psyche, if you will, into the space you're facing, whatever that may be. Blanche and I had dinner the other night with a couple, a lot of backstory I won't go into. But I was talking about my grandchildren, and one of the phrases that came up out of the blue, which wasn't as out of the blue as one might imagine, is too bad they won't be able to see the future, or that their future will be so bleak. And I became kind of defensive about that because, one, I think that's true. Two, I love my grandchildren, as you know, deeply, profoundly, and I don't want them to deal with a future that is unbearable. So as I listened to this man speak, I found this incredible surging of a voice that said, you're looking at it through the wrong lens. The future is profoundly unknowable, and the being that arises to meet it, whatever is going on, is going to be amazing to us. And two, everything comes down to Buddha's idea of impermanence. I will tell you one absolute about the future as we know it in manifested form. It is going to go away. At some point, not only do we go away, it all goes away. That is impermanence. It is actually a major part of the practice of Buddhist meditation, to try to find a place inside you that can go, and to hope and pray that your grandchildren or children or people you love will do this as well. Because the alternative to doing that is a very real psychodrama that you have to go through in order to go yes to the unacceptable. And if you watch the news the last week with everything in the hurricane in Florida, a lot of people had no mechanism, nothing. Although they all said they were so grateful to still be alive, almost everybody. And I think that's true, that we all do find enormous gratitude in being still here. Because being still here allows us to learn, to figure out, to practice, or whatever it is that you do, to finally go to whatever is a deep, profound opening. And if you have a real muscle system in place, this will open to the what is. This will open to the what is. Your gut will open to the what is, and you will just allow, accept, embrace this thing that goes deeper and deeper. And my own experience, and so you can trust me on this, or you can find it for yourself because I'm not unique, is that it opens into something way beyond time and space as we know it. It's something so much bigger. It's so vast. It's so eternal and infinite. I do believe, and I say this regularly, that the source of this vast, timeless, endless, spaceless, non-space eternity of being is love. If I'm wrong, you call me a pisher, or whatever you call people who are wrong. But I don't think I am wrong. I think the source of all of this is love. And I don't know why life turns on a dime and is so dramatic in its turning, and why it changes things so completely, but it does. And if you are not prepared for that, or you live a shallow existence, you will be blown apart by the shallowness of what's going on. If you have a depth of being, which is a practice experience, if you sit quietly and dive deep into the ocean of yourself, you will find this space that is an allowing, comforting space. It will get shaken up. You will still be able to say, take this cup from my lips, but it will not. In the end, you go through the future, whatever that may be. So learning how to go like that is better than going like that. That's all I can tell you. And the whole practice that we're in is not to do that if you can help it. And if you can't help it, forgive yourself, because you're human. And we're all human, and we're all going to face the future, but we're going to face it with the muscle, the capacity, the wisdom of this moment. And that wisdom can go so deep, it can actually transform you. Blanche and I went to the symphony last night, mostly Czechoslovakian composers, although many of them were composing when there was no Czechoslovakia. But Dvorak was one of them, and I just wanted to hear music. And one of the last one they had was Janacek, who I don't know if you know him, but he does a lot of opera as well, and they're beautiful. And Blanche and I have not been to a symphony in 4 or 5 years. And being in a symphony hall with, in this case, young musicians, stunningly good, and listening to music and having a moment where I'm listening and looking at everybody individually and wondering in all their incredible capacity to make this beautiful present tense music. And I'm sitting there trying to settle into the music. And all of a sudden I look and I'm seeing all of the bows and all of the horns and all of the movement as one thing, one orchestrated thing. And I didn't do anything. I just saw that. And then the music just lifted me up. And the note by note, chord by chord experience was so beautiful. And the idea of coming into the world to create this beauty was so extraordinary. And I didn't know what to do with it. And this friend at dinner the other night, his biggest complaint, other than the fact that my grandchildren wouldn't be around, was that all of this beauty was going to go away. It's all going to go. And what is it for? And what does it mean? And I have to answer that part of me is deeply troubled by the idea that Beethoven wouldn't continue to exist, or Dvorak, or moving into the realm of painting Monet and Van Gogh, and on and on and on. And all I can do is find a place of deep trust that it's going to be okay. Even if it all goes away, and it will at some point all go away, whether it's in 40 years or 4 million or billion years, it will all go away. And then who knows what will come. So I have a sense of needing to trust the moment to produce a future that will be worth knowing, even in the worst of the worst, to produce a future that will be worth knowing. The conductor of this symphony yesterday, Leon Botstein, who runs the Bard campus, has a daughter who just worked with Ken Burns on a documentary called The US and the Holocaust, which was a painting, really, if you will, a documentary, really, but a view of what it was like to be in this world with profound, awful change, the death of millions and millions and millions of people, innocent, as we would call them, people. And watching this documentary that this man's daughter helped create, Leon Botstein's daughter was one of the producers, I sat in the presence with the symphony last night of this man, the conductor who I really admire enormously, the sense of his daughter, the sense of this music all arising with beauty, and then this incredible sense of how much was lost in the Holocaust and how much on the horizon doesn't look any prettier on some level. We live in a world of incredible possibility and change, and scary change. So if anything, the idea that it would give us motivation to go deep, to sit down and just go, yes, I trust the journey. Yes, I trust you. Yes, I am open to what is. I know life will change on a dime, and I am available to that transformation to the best of my spiritual and, let's say, human capacity. That's really important. One other thing happened this week. It's been an interesting week. And I'm going to show you some actual images of it because it's so phenomenal. I don't know how to describe this, but I'll let you look at it first if I can make it all appear on the screen. This is a photograph. I have a series of them. They're done by a friend of mine named Joseph Tornick, who's also a student of Rudy's. Just a few more. Keep coming. And I want to show you one more. I did this one. I did this in 4 minutes of learning a program. I'm forgetting the name of the program, but my son Joshua showed me how to use it. All I had to do was feed it words of an image I would like to see. And I said, doorway to heaven, angelic wings, clouds. That's all I said. And that image appeared. It's called AI. It is a creative process that is emerging in the world that has very little to do with us at all. It's totally, totally remarkable. And I want to show you one more if I can figure out how to do it, because it's just such a new thing for me. And because I think it speaks to everything we need to speak to. This is a photograph Joshua did yesterday. For what it's worth, nobody in this picture is real. There are no real people. There's no forest. There is nobody touching. There are no two people. It is completely AI generated. No reality. But of course, it's real. And in my deciding to talk about the future, I wanted to show you some pictures of the future, and they are just the tip of an iceberg. There's so much going on that make you question, make me question, if so much beauty arises out of an artificial intelligence on this planet, programmed by the human being, but who knows what happens when the programming is done and it just produces for itself. Where do we fit in that? I'm not trying to scare you, but I'm trying to talk about a future that may be beyond knowable to all of us, and that maybe we are transitional elements in all of that. Transitional elements that are using up all of the resources of a planet that artificial intelligence wouldn't use up. And so if it could create stories and beautiful images and music, etc., and all of this other stuff, where do we fit in all of that? I know that's just a question that goes into the mind. It can go deeper than that. And some answers to that are going to be answers that will shake you up as a human being. They've shaken me up as a person. On the other hand, I am so awed by the unknowability of the existential reality of our being, the unknowability of future that can produce things like that and may in some way change the world in ways that we as human beings benefit from, or in ways where human beings no longer are roaming the surface of the planet. Whatever it is, it's all arising out of something that, if you tap into it, is the past, is the present, is the future, and is in a way, just based on those images, full of wonder, magic, beauty. Where is it coming from? Dive deep, find the answer, go into yourself, see for yourself what this is, where this is arising from. The journey of the meditative persona is to feel, if not to know, but knowing helps, but to feel in the heart, in the gut, that we are part of something so extraordinary and phenomenal and unknowable and that the future is rising out of that. And yes, it goes through periods of pain and dissolution and terrible things like death and suffering, but it also goes through production of the incredible ethereal beauty of being. That's who we are. That's what we are one with. And if you go deep enough into that, your personal journey will be, you are simply here. You are simply here to witness this, maybe to be a voice of it, to be a conduit for it, to be a vessel for something beautiful. You can be a producer. Maybe all we're supposed to be is witnesses, appreciators of life itself. I gave 4 words to a computer and it created something more beautiful than I could have ever worked out in my entire lifetime. What does that mean? What does that mean? Oh, gone. I have no clue. But I'm presenting it to you because the reason for going deep inside and finding one's inner awareness, inner truth, the reason for that is to witness the unbelievable, unknowability, remarkable, extraordinarily magical, mystical truth of awareness. That's all it's for, I think. And so I want to share that with you. I don't have a conclusive statement to make because I am beyond conclusivity at this point. I have no clue at all to what I'm dealing with. I just know I am dealing, if you will, witnessing, touching, loving, fearing, witnessing something remarkable in our day-to-day life that gives me hope, challenges me, makes me question everything that I know, but I'm doing that anyway. Every day I'm doing that. Every day I go beyond me. At the same time, I can choose to fear that, or I can choose to worship it, or I can go, just me, just here, little guy, little character, don't know how I came into being, don't know where I'm going, but I'm in it, I'm watching it. Got lucky I met a guy named Rudy, lucky I took an LSD trip, lucky I met all of you. Here I am, sharing the unknowability of something absolutely beautiful and astounding, maybe terrifying, but worth looking at and knowing it's happening in the now. We are one with it. We are here with this. Who knows where any of it goes? But if you go deep enough, all I can tell you is you will trust it. And that's, I think, what we're trying to do now. Okay. Questions. I mean, I don't even know what to say to any of this, but let's try it. Zach, do you want to?
Yeah. Well, so I guess first of all, that program is called Midjourney.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you. Midjourney.
I almost emailed you the other week. I stumbled across. I was like, "Oh, Bruce would probably find this really interesting." I just never got around to it. But so I have a question about the witnessing. I guess in relationship with doing, because sometimes I find that I go into the witnessing and I'm stepping back and I'm stepping back. I have a tendency to get almost kind of spacey. I'll find my eyes closing, and it's like pleasant and it's a different kind of thing, but it's a little bit hard to stay present. And I find that if I'm not having like a doing component, it's hard for me to really stay kind of engaged. I'm wondering if you could talk about maybe how those relate.
Well, just the way you said, it's hard. I mean, there's no exact easy way. There is a muscle you can build that can stay more aware of being without having to do. And it has to give up a certain kind of autonomy. It has to say, thy will over your will. And you have to just settle in and watch it expand and just watch the ride, because it gets really big. I mean, it gets beyond anything the mind can do anything with. The creative forces can't express it really. There's nothing you can do other than kind of love it or accept it and watch it happen and try to stay quiet, simple, and alert. That's the best thing, rather than muddy and kind of sleepy. Sleepy thing is the normal human thing. It's kind of what puts us into dream state. If you can just stay alert as best you can, not critical, not judgmental, not saying what's wrong with me, just going, okay, do the best you can. It really does start to show itself in bigger and bigger and bigger ways, to the point of the only expression I can really give you is the word awe. It gives you awe. And when you have awe, there's something about it that is so, the word is, I guess, desirable. There's a knower of the awe, and then there's also a creator of the awe. And when those merge together, there's a oneness. There's a oneness, and it's really beyond. So it's, I guess the word Rudy would use is muscle system. Stay alert, stay aware of being. Don't feel the urge to go into doing, because you will have the opportunity. You can't just stay into being. You have to eat. You have to go to the bathroom. You got to shower. So doing is a function of part of this knowing. But there are periods where you can go really deep, where you don't need to do anything else, and it's worth trying. It's just worth seeing what that is. It'll help.
Thank you.
Who else? Anyone else? George?
Yeah, I was just addressing the hurricane and catastrophes and things like that. My mind goes back to, I think, 1963 or 64, when there was a blackout in New York City around sunset. And that just opened people up. People were reaching out to each other. I think there were more babies being born that night. So people just were looking for love. They were looking to let go, you know.
George, I was working at NBC in the newsroom when they're about to go on the air with Huntley Brinkley, and all the electricity went off. And somehow we managed through a generator to get through to Washington, D.C., where I think Brinkley was located, and he went on the air. But everyone else in the office started calling out for this one woman who was really beautiful, and liquor bottles came out of cabinets that I had no idea were there. But that moment was so unbelievable that everybody was looking to hug this one woman and to drink the liquor. And then I had to walk home because there were no subways or anything like that. And I walked home at night, and people were laughing and hugging on the street, and it was the most beautiful experience. So yeah, change like that can
It's a
have
transformation, you know, it's surrender for people. You know.
absolutely. You never know. But of course, you know, had buildings been falling down at the same time, it would not have been that reaction. So yeah, you never know what you're going to get. But when it's something like that, it was a big wake-up call in New York that this is not permanent and electricity is not a given. And that was, I remember, being a really important note. Anybody else? Yep.
I've been thinking a lot about, you know, through the Ken Burns doc, but also just learning some recent family history. How do you work with kind of generational trauma? This is something I've been thinking a lot about just through kind of witnessing my family.
Well, I don't have firsthand experience in a way. I mean, I do, because we had generational trauma. I had my great-grandmother came to America with 4 daughters, landed at Ellis Island. One of the daughters had pink eye, and they wouldn't let her off the boat. So my grandmother let 3 of her daughters off the boat and took her other one back to Russia and died in a program in Russia. And I've always thought about that, and that percolated through the system. But what I discovered was how it opened doors. And my grandmother, the one who was left in New York, developed with her sisters these amazing hearts, just deeply open hearts. And probably, I think I've described this, the most formative moment in my life, and maybe why I'm a teacher at all, was her holding me in her arms when I was 4 years old and she was dying. It was my last time with her, and she held me and she kept mumbling these Yiddish words, mummela, 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 meaning honey, honey, honey. But I never felt so much love ever, ever, and it has never gone away. So that trauma is already resolving itself in each human being, and each person has to do it. It's not your responsibility to change the trauma of the past or even what exists in the moment, other than simply love what is. Love the beings in front of you. Be kind and good to the people around you, because that has a softening, opening quality that maybe by the end of their own life, they will have touched some of that trauma and been able to go, thy will be done, which is about all we can do. Because, every person is different. Most people are locked up so deeply, and especially with trauma, they lock it away so far that nobody is going to get to it. But if you do very subtle loving and being consistent, you may find that it finds its way to a doorway that is under lock and key and turns the key. You may, but it's not your job. On the other hand, it is your job, I think, as a human being, to show up, to be available, to be good, to be kind, and let that do its trick. And it will do what it needs to do, not what you think it needs to do, but what it needs to do. And it does seem to go toward opening, kindness, embrace, love, transformation, all those things, just because you're being good. So I think that, for me, is the ultimate teaching. I've said it 1,000 times, be kind, and that takes care of you and the world. Be kind with yourself, starts to take care of you. Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? I'm going to have to switch screens for a second just to see anybody on screen 2. Okay.
I have a question, Bruce.
Oh, I hear it's somebody.
This is David.
Hi.
Thinking about what you were saying about the future and world can change on a dime. I guess like, what if you're that dime? Like, you're the one that's making a change. I'm, been at this company for 15 years and been desperately trying to find a new job, and didn't happen. It's not happening. And I'm gonna, in the new year, I'm gonna go freelance and try to sort of like have my own business and just see what happens. So it's a big leap of faith that I'm taking. It's a little scary, and I keep changing my mind and then changing it back. And so I kind of wonder, like, what's a spiritual way to look at the future when you're the one who's doing the thing that's changing things, but you don't know how it's going to work out?
Well, David, I've been working on my book, of which you are a part. And I would say the core of the book was risk-taking. And it was risk-taking without knowing. But it was led by something inside that just said, take a chance. Find out what this will be. Of course, the big one being Blanche and I moving to California for my career, which it was Blanche the one who took the risk, because we were told, if you want a career in Hollywood, you got to move here. And we went back to Illinois where we were living, and she put our house on the market. Said, we're moving.
Wow.
You want to know terror? And because, for her, it was like one thing, we're moving, and she's the one who was supporting us mostly. We're moving to California where I had no job, no work. Maybe some prospects, but not much. And it was horrifying, completely horrifying. But if you can feel that the force driving you is authentic and real and in support of growth and development and something that serves, then I think use that force, use it behind you, go for it, follow your heart, follow this directive, and see what happens. None of us know. None of us know. But if you don't do it, I will tell you, you will stay where you are and you will not be happy. And you don't want that. You don't want that at this point. So I've been around and I've watched how this works. And, I know that you have a lot of skills. You have a great personality. You have a great capacity to do work. And it will be rewarded, I think, by the fact of your skill set. So you just kind of go out and do it. Now, if I'm wrong, you will learn a lot of new lessons about what it means to, have less, struggle more, have more nervousness, and all that other stuff. But that's just more training in a way for how do I give myself over to the unknown, the unknowable, and trust it. How do I trust it? And if you make it an act of trust, and I talk directly, I talk all the time to the unknowable, the guys upstairs, as Rudy would call them. I just talk to them, and I just say, help me, guide me. Rudy's key words in the practice: help me, surrender, help me. You do it, and watch where it goes. I think you will be, very, very instructed by this, and I think at some point that instruction will inform many other people. So I wish you well, of course.
Thank you.
And back you up on every way I can. So
thank you.
Good luck. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. So thank you guys for coming. You know, I do appreciate you being here, and I love you guys so much. And you know, just stay open, stay present, and trust the future.